Hi, everybody. It is such a pleasure to see you today. I think for some of you it's night, for some of you it's day, for Sylvia it's middle of the night. So welcome to our Insider Talk today, where we have the pleasure to have Sylvia with us, who's one of our former participants from the ArtBound Initiative program. And today we'll have a great conversation, a real conversation, casual, with Sylvia about how she got, a job in the arts at Google, which is obviously an incredible, achievement, and we're very proud of her. So in terms of how the event is going to go, we'll start with just a fireside chat. I have some questions for Sylvia. I'll want you, of course, to be asking questions for her about her career, about Google, about, advice, anything that you can think of. So we'll do that. We'll be talking and doing a Q&A. In the middle of the session, I will do a short introduction of our program as well, of the ArtBound Initiative program. This will last about 10 minutes. So for my participants who are currently here, stay with us for that because you already know what the program is. And then afterwards, we will go back to a Q&A with Sylvia. And if you have, of course, any questions, about the program, you can, also reach out to us as well. So before I, of course, introduce Sylvia, I will just say, just a couple words about ArtBound Initiative and why we're doing this. So ArtBound Initiative is a global internship program for creatives, for students, fresh graduates. We offer opportunities in the creative industries in terms of internships in different locations. And our mission is to also provide insider knowledge as much as possible to participants and people from all over the world. We're trying to not be the gatekeepers and really hoping to provide as much information as we can. And so it's in this capacity that we're inviting professionals to come and talk to us and tell us a little bit more about their journey. So about our speaker today, Sylvia is a partnership and project manager at Google Arts and Culture in Milan, where she builds strategic collaborations with leading cultural institutions and drives purpose-led digital projects. Actually, Sylvia began her journey not with us. She was probably having a journey before that, but she joined our program back in the days and did an internship at an incredible arts organization called Residency Unlimited in New York City. And then later afterwards, basically came back, to Milan. Of course, Sylvia, I'll ask you all about this, and started her journey. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen now so that we can focus on this. So Sylvia, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, that's a pleasure. Thank you.
So maybe Sylvia, to start, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your journey? Maybe explain we have a lot of students here, fresh grads. So, tell us a little bit about briefly where you started, what you did, and then how did you end up at Google?
Yeah, so basically I graduated in arts management. So that was my major. So yeah, I had a few experiences before, joining ABI and Residency Unlimited in foundations, in arts foundations in Italy. And one of them was in Venice and like close to where I live. And yeah, that's basically, my experience. And I studied arts, and then I did this internship. And yeah, right, before graduating, I discovered ABI. And yeah, I wanted to do an internship abroad that will also give me like, visibility in the job market. So yeah, I applied to the program, and I got the internship. And then what happened, with the I applied during the COVID time, so that was kind of crazy, and I couldn't leave for New York. But yeah, that was a little bit my journey. And yeah, I did have like some previous experiences in the art world, but I think with Residency Unlimited and with CADAF, I was able to gain like visibility also for other companies like the one at Google. Yeah.
And so actually that was an interesting thing, right? Because you did the program, I think you applied in like 2019 and was
Yeah,
about to head
yeah,
to New York and then the world shut down, right? So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
like crazy time. So I think I recall that in the beginning we found you something online, right? An internship remote with an arts organization in the meantime that the world would
yeah,
reopen, right? With
yeah,
and that was with an
yeah.
art organization, right? Art
Yeah,
fair.
so the first one was with CADAF, and it was a digital art fair, actually.
Art fair.
So basically, yeah, I was dealing with all the communications and also, I mean, digital communications, and I was also doing some graphic design there. And yeah, it was great. And yeah, it also like helped me with, like also gaining other knowledge and experience.
Right.
And yeah, and then I was able, like after a few months to leave for New York.
Right, to actually like go to the US and be able to work for Residency Unlimited. So tell us a little bit about your experience, very briefly about in Residency Unlimited. For everybody who doesn't know, Residency Unlimited is a residency program, right? So they're bringing artists from all over the world to do residencies in New York. They're organizing exhibitions and studio visits and basically putting in touch artists with curators and other professionals. So what were you doing very briefly at Residency Unlimited? Because
Yeah,
that's related to your job now today as well, right?
yeah. I mean, I was managing like different parts of the residency program, and I was from, planning and coordinating activities like workshops or studio visits, with curators, as you said, and guided tours to the museums in New York. As you said, a lot of artists are coming from, different parts of the world. So it's nice to give them like a tour of the, main museums in the city. And yeah, I was also managing the calendar and, coordinating everything like all these events. We had exhibitions as well.
Right.
And yeah, it was really, really interesting. And I was also coordinating with the partners we had. And that's very important for the job I'm doing now because that's what I'm doing basically.
Right. And can you tell
And
us a bit more about that? So you're at Residency Unlimited for like 3 months, is that right? About three,
no, I applied for like 6 months,
6 months.
and then I was able also to get like a small stipend, and I stayed there for like 9 months. I
That's right.
extended my visa actually. Yeah.
You extended your visa. That's right. So you finish with with Residency Unlimited and you're like, okay, like now I have to go back to Italy and like, start my career. What happens next?
Yeah, I think that was the scariest part because I mean the job market here in Italy is not, so dynamic and in general, and especially for the art world, I think I think everywhere like it's kind of more closed off, I think. And like there are, public institutions, but they have like very I think you have to go through public competitions, and they are every 5 years, and it's very hard and everything. So yeah, I started applying, and at first it wasn't really going well, and I was also thinking about, applying abroad, like outside Italy. But yeah, then I found this job. I found this job offer at Google, um, through LinkedIn. And then I, discovered that I knew someone that worked previously at Google. So that's where I contacted them. And yeah, I was able to get like the first interviews, and that was great. I mean, that I knew, also someone, and it was easier for sure to get in touch with the HR. That's for sure.
That's amazing. And I love to hear that because I do want to remind everybody on this call the power of connections and networks, right? Like obviously, even for those big companies, if you do have an in somehow, you realize that you have a LinkedIn mutual connection, which is exactly what happened to you, Sylvia, right? You
Yeah.
like looked at the job, looked at it, and you were like, oh, I know this person, you know, like I know a person who works there, right? So
Yeah.
utilizing this to potentially, you know, even get that first connection, because obviously, you know, if you're not talented and you're not good, you're not going to get the job whether you know someone there or not, but at least it might allow you to open it a little bit. So tell us a bit about the recruitment for Google, because that's, you know, I always hear like those crazy stories of like 100 interview sessions, like, so how was it, like the interviewing process for Google?
Yeah, that's kind of true because I had like 6-step interviews, so yeah,
Wow.
it's a process that thing. Yeah, so I mean, this person sent my CV to the HR, but then it took some time, and the HR contacted me firstly via phone, and we had like a small brief chat via phone, like maybe a 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And then I had, and we were mainly talking about like my interests and, my education, and that's it, my previous experiences, and that's it. And then I had another video call with my current manager. And yeah, I mean, she asked me more about, my technical, skills, and, also the skills required for the job. So
Right.
still, it was like a very, I think, simple and not so formal call. But yeah, it was like a 15 minutes again, and where I could, understand more about the job and everything. And then I was invited to do on-site interviews, and that's where things get harder.
Right.
And yeah, you have like usually you have 3 to 4 um, interviews, and they last about 45 minutes. But it
Okay.
can change. I mean,
So
according to the role and to the position. Like this was not like a senior position, so I did like only 4, but yeah, can be more.
right. So it
And
was
yeah,
six total, 6 interviews total. That was for a junior role, right? So 6 interviews
yeah,
total to be able to
yeah.
get.
And then there's another one that it's more like an interview. They call it googliness, and it's more like you get to understand like the culture a little bit, and how you position yourself like inside Google, and like random questions about Google culture that can be also like, I don't know, what's the Google product you like the most, for example, like something like that, or how would you improve it, which is like more difficult, but yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, I mean, these 4 interviews were like I think the hardest ones. Yeah, they get more in detail for sure. And I remember being asked about, very quantitative things, like about my projects, for example,
Mm,
like about, results, basically. And, they were also asking me about, for example, I remember I wrote in my resume that for Residency Unlimited, I worked for a while. We were creating like an app that was useful for artists to know, to understand, all the, like, sort of a calendar of all the, studio visits and guided sessions and exhibitions they had. And yeah, it was like this app that I was, developing with the developer. Like I was helping him to, settle in it. And the interviewer asked me, okay, but how do you know like this app work? Like, do you have like some results that
wow.
show me like if this thing worked? And yeah, that was kind of hard because also like it was a work in progress,
Sure.
and
You didn't
we
really have
didn't,
data, right? So,
yeah, we didn't have that data. But yeah, you can um, that's very important, to have like a solid, I think, result of your job, I think.
Right. So I think that's a great pro tip for everybody here who is potentially looking into getting into those types of like, major companies like Google, as Sylvia, you're mentioning, is like whatever you're putting on your resume, you need to be able to really back it up with like
Yeah.
some solid data. So if you're saying that you've organized events resulting into this amount of attendees, that you need to be quite precise, right? And be able to talk about it, because
Yeah.
they will get into those types of questions, right?
Yeah.
Very
And
interesting.
yeah, I didn't, I was expecting like to be asked that question, but yeah, I didn't have like exact data about it. So,
Yeah.
but I was able again to explain it. And the important part is that you can explain the process and how it works.
Yeah, of course, of course. So tell us a little bit more about, so obviously you got the job. Congratulations. It's been what, 2, 3 years now that you're in the job?
2 years. Yeah,
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, what's interesting for us is that, and I talk, I talk to a lot to my participants about you, because I think it's quite interesting what you're doing. We always think about Google and all those tech firms as like, the jobs are going to be in engineering and like maybe, marketing and data and all of that. But actually, it's super interesting to see that you were able to nail an opportunity in like literally working in cultural management and in the arts and culture at Google. So what does it mean like working in arts and culture at Google, and like maybe briefly like what's your day to day like, what you
Explain.
do
Okay.
there, yeah.
Yeah, so basically what I do is, as we said, is managing partnerships and the projects we have at Google Arts and Culture. So basically, you know, uh, what Google Arts and Culture is, I mean, it's a platform where, all these institutions can upload and share their collections. And what I do is also, communicating and pitch, to partners our offer, and how they are gonna implement like the platform with their collections, and how they are gonna profit from our projects. And yeah, they basically can share all their content on the platform, and their images and informations. And they can also participate in bigger projects. For example, I don't know, now we're working on a project on Italian design, so we have more than one institution participating in Italy. And yeah, it's sort of like a collaboration also between between institutions, so they can collaborate together to create something bigger online. Yeah, so what I do is like talking to these institutions and convince them basically to get in the platform, and share their images and their content with us. And also what we do is like digitizing. Also a big part is digitizing their content.
Okay.
So I don't know if, for example, like with some technologies that maybe like for example Street View, like the 360 tour.
The Google,
Yeah.
yeah, to check out yeah, Street View, yeah.
Or also like there's a photo camera that is called our camera, that can digitize like with high resolution images. And with these technologies we digitize like some of the collections of our partners. And yeah, it's all for free because Google Arts and Culture is a non-commercial initiative. So basically, they don't have to pay for these services. And yeah, that's interesting, and that's the main goal of the project,
That's cool. So actually the section of Google that you're working within is non-commercial, basically, because Google is
Yeah,
commercial, right? Google is
yeah,
to make money and to make profit. So your section, the arts and culture one, is kind of like almost like a non-for-profit within Google.
yeah.
That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
basically we sign a contract, like a partnership contract. So it's not like, I mean, they don't have to pay for our services. They don't have to pay to be online. So yeah, for
And
sure.
and why is Google doing that? Is it like to stay relevant? Like, is it to make sure that they're contributing to like the arts? Like, what was the concept behind like such a big tech company deciding like, oh, we're going to create an arts and culture department and just like support
Yeah,
our world?
yeah. I think the main, goal initially, I think it was, as Google is, devoted, I think, to share information for free online. They wanted to have the same thing for arts and culture. So to be able to share, a painting or like a street view of a, I don't know, like a church or something, or like a content that
Hmm.
it's directly curated by a, curator of, of like a certain institution,
Yeah,
and to have it like online. So for everyone to be able to see it, to learn
yeah,
from it, I think.
right. Okay, so it's
And yeah,
yeah,
that's, I think, the main mission, but I think it's also like, yeah, it has to do like also with other projects. We also collaborate with other teams, and I don't know, like if we have like, for example, a project with the government, like these kind of projects with, arts and culture, like public museums, they are very, I think, useful for us to gain like a little bit of a cultural angle
very
to these projects. And yeah, it's everything, like all the projects we do are cross-functional. So they involve like different teams for sure.
interesting. Interesting. So really your day-to-day job, if I can summarize it, is really like to kind of, there's a lot of programs that are happening and like you're basically having to manage all those programs, like, help with the, coordinate with the different stakeholders, the different like organizations, like basically it's
Yeah,
project management, right? That you're doing in
yeah, yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah, and it's like a big part is that, but it's also like a lot of work in, in the background, I think,
Yeah. Of course.
because also like you need to be there for the partner, and to help them to, I don't know, upload their content,
Yeah.
and you have to guide them through the digitization process. Of course, it's not me that goes there and do the like tour or the 360 or like shot the photo. But yeah, you need to mediate, and to be there for the partner always, to and organize the processes for sure. And yeah,
Amazing.
then you have to, of course, manage all the launches, and yeah, that's a lot. Yeah. But
Yeah. So I want to start opening it up to questions, and afterwards we'll do, as I mentioned, a short break to talk a bit about the program. But Anna, who's one of our participants, is asking, like, was there any work in particular that you feel got you noticed by Google? So any previous experience that you've had on your resume, that kind of like, yeah, made you notice, basically.
okay, yeah, I think probably like my last experiences, I think, were the ones that were useful, because I think with CADAF, the fact that the digital fair, like the fact that the fair was digital, like
Right.
was interesting to them.
Cool.
And I was working also at CADAT. I was also working with VR. So like it was interesting to them to see that I was, at least I knew about it, and I was working with this kind of tools. And also, I think at Residency Unlimited, Um, that was interesting because I think a lot of projects were about social justice and also environmental justice as well. Um, so I mean, these are common themes that are occurring also in our project at Google. So
Right, right.
um, yeah, as well as colonialism, like other teams, like are also very, um, you know, known and yeah, they are like the main teams we work with at Google
Makes
as well.
makes sense. Well, I'm glad that it's the two internships that we got you that somehow contributed
Yeah,
to it.
yeah,
So that's good. Yeah. So it was like both your experience in digital with working with digital, digital art fair, and also your experience like the depth of the projects that you were doing at Residency Unlimited, and probably also because it was a lot of coordinating work, right, as well, which is very similar.
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
to what they were asking. So Anna is asking a second question, which is, are there any helpful tips on how to keep accurate records of our work that you could share? Because you talked about the importance of like, how they drilled you a little bit on like the data and like
Yeah.
the achievements and like, so I mean, I have some advice as well, but do you have any advice on how to keep, accurate records for that?
Well, I think maybe, you need always like to keep your resume and your, uh, I don't know, cover letter or whatever it is, like always updated. I think that's great. Same as, I mean, I'm not so good about with it, but same as LinkedIn, I think. And yeah, I think that's it. Also, like having like probably I don't know like how to say that, but also yeah, explaining like for me like the problem with the app with the RU app that I wasn't able to give like all the details, all the data was that the app wasn't launched yet, so I didn't have the results. And I think also like keep in contact with the internship you had with um, the manager you had is also very helpful to keep track of everything. I think you did as well.
That's right. I think there's two important points in what you're saying is one, when you are doing an internship, you need to make sure that like actually you keep almost like a journal and an
Mhm.
accurate
Yeah,
record of everything that you're doing. I tell that to my participants always to kind of keep, basically a laundry list of all the tasks, even the small ones, how it results, like what did you do, if you worked on
yeah,
social media, like how many followers did you gain, if you worked on events, as I mentioned, how many people showed up, like all those numbers, like keep them as you go, and at the end of it you can start working out how you're going to put it into your resume and making it make sense. And I love what you're saying, which is if you have work in progresses, which is exactly
yeah,
with the app, like making sure that you actually, even if your internship is done, that you're staying in touch in some ways with your previous workplace to understand what the results were. Did it get dropped? Did it continue on? If
yeah,
something
yeah.
happened, I think that's really a really great tip, Sylvia, to mention that. So there's a question from Diego who's saying, like, you mentioned about how Italy was very different in regards to the arts, specifically mentioning public events over like, like kind of public competitions over like every 5 years. Can you just understand like very briefly how does that work?
Yeah, basically like for public museums, like even directors, like they get elected, I think you
Yeah,
said it, like every 5 years. And it's also depending on the, politics. And I mean, it's not like so dynamic as I would say every other sector. So yeah, you kind of need to wait for, uh, um, for the grant, for the to be issued. So yeah, it's kind of a waiting game, I think also as well.
processes, right? Yeah, it's like I think every public art, and specifically I would say in Europe, is very like formal and very long and very
Yeah,
non-dynamic. Maybe not as much in the US, but you know, it's definitely definitely the good route to go sometimes, like outside of just the public.
yeah.
So I'm gonna make a very short break to talk about the program. There's a lot of great questions actually that I'm gonna come back to. As I go through that, I want to encourage you as well to like, you know, ask more questions too. Let me just go ahead and share my screen for a second, and Sylvia, you can grab some water if you wish as well in the meantime. And then let's please keep asking questions because we're going to get back to it in a second. So just to kind of briefly introduce, obviously, you know, Sylvia did the program, right? She's one of our alumni. So our program is a global career accelerator for creatives. As I mentioned, what we do is that we connect students and fresh grads with creative companies, you know, in different destinations across the world. So we have programs. Sylvia did the program in New York. She actually did both our virtual program, which we've launched during COVID, and the New York program. We also have programs in Chicago and Los Angeles. In Europe, we have programs in London, Berlin, and then we have 2 programs in Australia as well, in Melbourne and Sydney. So those are all really exciting destinations, and of course our virtual program in case you're not able to relocate necessarily to those areas. We are very focused as a program in the creative fields. Okay, so we're not engineers, we don't do finance, we don't do those things. We work within entertainment and media, work within design, within marketing and advertising, within fine arts, which is what, you know, Sylvia did. Sylvia did an arts administration internship at the time, like arts administration, cultural management internship. And then we also work in the fashion industry. So those are kind of the main areas that we offer. In terms of our program, there's 4 key components of it. And by the way, Sylvia, it changed so much since you did it back in the days in 2020 because we've totally revamped the entire thing. So you might be interested in seeing what we're doing now. So there's 4 components. The first one is the ABI Academy, which are online courses that you can take on top of your classes. And those courses are focused around entering the workforce, how to pitch yourself, how to present yourself, building a resume, portfolio, learning how to do interviews, what Sylvia was mentioning, learning how to get prepared for the opportunity. The second element is that it includes a guaranteed internship placement, which is obviously a good perk if you get accepted into the program. The third element is that it includes our creative network, people like Sylvia who are all over the world working now in great institutions and organizations. And then the fourth, it includes a dedicated support from our team throughout your entire process. In terms of the academy, basically there's 2 main sections. The first one is how to prepare your profile. So we talked a bit about it, how to basically put together the strongest resume that you can, how to put together a portfolio if you're a creative, how to learn, you know, the interview process with recruiters. Basically, we're going to make sure that your profile looks the absolute best it can be so that you can be competitive and find good internships and good jobs afterwards. The second part of it, module 2, is about getting ready for your internship, getting to talk to different professionals in the industry, learning, you know, all the unspoken rules that the workforce is requiring, expectations, what you're going to need to do. Those are things that you don't learn in universities, which makes sense, of course. Like, you know, I think probably Sylvia and I had to learn it in the first, you know, years of our job, right? So we're condensing some of this knowledge for you all to know. We have great industry advice, you know, industry advisors and experts, people based on your industry, people from Warner Brothers, from MTV, from, you know, Omnicom Group, from Ralph Lauren, from Shutterstock, senior recruiters. So we're trying to bring in cool people that are senior to come and talk to you. In terms of the second part, the guaranteed internship placements. So if you get accepted, as I mentioned, you will get an internship through us. And you'll be able to apply all the learnings that you're gaining through the academy in a real life setting. The internships are year round that we offer, fall, spring, summer, and they're ranging typically from 3 to 6 months, right? So Sylvia, for example, did the 6 month, ended up extending for longer, but you could also just do 3 months if you wanted. They can be part-time or full-time, unless you go abroad, and most of the time, if you go abroad, it will be full-time. And you can do it for academic credit if your university allows it, or you can do it for experience. The one catch that I want to be clear about is that we can't guarantee paid internships. That's one thing, is that we work with a variety of companies, and, you know, with or without our program, that's something that you're going to face moving forward, like, because, you know, there's not only paid internships, we wish. So if it's a deal breaker for you to have an unpaid internship, obviously totally understand it, but that's not the right program for you to apply for. That being said, we have a really good conversion rate, because 60% of our participants who are doing the local programs are actually getting hired after their internship. So that's a really good, that we're very proud of that number. And we've had, you know, big companies in the past like TBWA, CBS, Hybeast, McCann, Vice, but we also work with a lot of boutique firms and smaller firms and mid-level firms. Like, for example, Sylvia was working, you know, in an organization that was quite small, I would say, like in terms of staffing, but, you know, obviously landed her such a great opportunity afterwards. So also smaller companies and organizations are really great. So a few examples of some of our highlighted company partners that are a little bit smaller that you might have heard of or not. Mad Museum in New York, you know, with internships in galleries and curatorial, arts administration, cultural management. Picture North, for example, a production company in Chicago, with opportunities in production. Example of like a PR agency in LA, where you can intern in, you know, PR, marketing, social media, etc. Raptor, a marketing agency in London. Same thing, you know, internships in like advertising and strategy, content. Somos, which is an art gallery in Berlin, with opportunities in cultural management, social media. Collider in Sydney, for example, a production studio. And then Milkman, another creative agency in Melbourne, you know, with opportunities in design, content creation, just to show you a little, like a really small sample. If you're going overseas, okay, if you take our program to go abroad, which is what Sylvia did, she was in Italy, she went to New York. So we would handle for that the visa processing, we will help with insurance, we'll help with housing, just relocating you basically. And when you get to the city, you would basically meet with our coordinators and get an in-city orientation. Whether you're doing the overseas program or local program or virtual program, we're still going to be very hands-on. You will have coordinators from our program that are there with you at every step of the way, from the onboarding to setting up interviews with companies to helping you with your resume, your portfolio, your visa, everything. We're pretty hands-on. I think Sylvia remembers how much we're hands-on. So it is still the case. We're very much trying to support you all. And then the last part of the program is the creative community. For me, that's the most important part. We have an app that we've built, which I have data about. We have an app that we built, I'm joking, Sylvia, and where we have all of our participants that are there. Now that's over 1,000 people, you know, that are basically on this app. And this is a lifetime membership. This is our LinkedIn, our own LinkedIn kind of like platform. We're sharing events, we're sharing job boards, we're doing workshops like that and industry talks, so that we can give access, you know, to our participants to as much and as many resources as possible. And then obviously, as you're growing through our program, the concept is also to be connecting with our alumni. We've got people at Apple, at NBC, at CBS, at Saatchi and Saatchi, Sylvia right here at Google, at Netflix, you know, at TikTok, at L'Oreal. And obviously, we don't just have people that are at big companies, because some people don't want to go into big corporations. We also have freelancers, we have entrepreneurs, we have, you know, people that are in boutique firms. So that's what you need to be really capitalizing on as much as possible. So how to apply to our program? You know, we have an application form on our website that you need to fill out. Then you would have an interview with our admissions team, and then we will let you know if you've been accepted into the program. And then you can make your decision. If we have, I saw like we had a few people from Australia on this call. Just so you know, for our Australia participants, if you are wanting to do something for the summer for you, which is November, I know it's a bit confusing for our Americans here. Make sure that you apply before May 10. For our American participants or for the rest of the world, if you are looking, summer is already closed for us, but we have fall deadlines. If you want to do an internship in the fall, you can do it part-time on top of your studies, or if you graduated, this will also be May 10th for you for the deadline. So I recommend for you to go to our website if you want to check out more information, look through our tuitions as well, our scholarship opportunities, like understand the financials, the processes. We have so much information on the website. Check us out. And if that's of interest, of course, you can contact us. You can check first if you're eligible, basically on our website. And then if you're ready to apply, you can go to our apply page. I'm gonna also share afterwards with you a link so that you can see we have more free events that are coming up. Some events about putting together a resume, some events about putting together a portfolio, some events about how to navigate the job market right now with senior recruiters. So I'll share a link for you. Those are all free events that I obviously would recommend for you all to attend because it's free. So you all should do it if you can. So I'm gonna pop this into the chat. So thank you for, obviously this little break for the program. So of course, Sylvia, I have more questions for you, right? Coming through. And I know, as an alumna of our program, like, yeah, I think, we're obviously very proud to have you as well. And like, it's really cool to see how you got there. So Annette is asking actually, during the interview process, when they ask you about the impact and the results of your past project, how do you go about answering that question if you don't have the statistics? So basically, how did you get out? How did you make your way out of this question? I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, I think I think a big part is also like being transparent and saying like, okay, this was not like a completed task I did. So I think, just tell them like this, task is still ongoing, like this project is still ongoing. And I think also, what I did, it was also explaining like what I did actually.
Yeah.
So I was working, with a developer, to, make the app looking like good and nice, and it's like also like pleasing, like from a visual point of view. And also like understanding like the information you need to put in the app, and yeah, I would say, yeah, I was able to get away with it and say, you know uh, this still has to be completed, and
Yeah.
that's it.
So basically really being honest, first of all, like not
Yeah, yeah,
BSing your way through it, right? Like being honest
yeah,
and just focusing on what you know already, right? Like
yeah,
the
yeah,
unknowns part, because this was a work in progress. So of course I don't have necessarily the results, but what I did was X, Y, and Z, right? So really, really,
yeah, yeah.
I think is a great feedback. Um, so thanks for the question, Annette. That's a great question. So I have Jade who's asking, how would you recommend reaching out? That's a really good question. How would you recommend reaching out to mutual connections in order to help with the hiring process? I'm thinking particularly in such a case where you are connected on LinkedIn, but you've never really met before.
Mm, okay,
What would be your advice to manage this?
okay. That's a tricky question because, like with my mutual connection, I was able to just, text her. I mean, we were seeing each other like every day, so it was very easy.
Yeah,
But I think when you don't know someone, I think you might, just send them a message in the chat, and, maybe, I don't know, like send them also your resume, like make their life easier, I think. So I think that's a smart thing to do. And, just say, I'm seeing like you're, recruiting for this job. Like I'm doing this and that. Maybe, I can send you my resume if you're interested. I don't know if it works, honestly, but I would try that.
right. It's worth that. How did you ask someone? Because that's also a question. How did you ask someone that you know? Because sometimes when you know someone, it's also hard to ask a favor for a
Yeah,
job. right? So how would you approach that? Like, that was a friend of a friend, or like
Yeah.
it was a connection of yours who was obviously not a professional connection, it was a personal connection. So how did you turn that into making it successful?
Well, I think, you need to, I think, to say what you could do for, for this job, I
Right.
think, and to really show them like that you're professional, I think, um, skills, I think. And of course, like this person knew that I was just, I was ending this internship
Right.
in New York. So like she knew my background. Um, so it was very easy for her to understand my background.
Of course.
But yeah, I would say like um, stress the fact that you are interested in this position and also say what you are the good, candidate for this position, I think.
Bring to the table, right? And I think, Jade, for to answer your question about like if you have a mutual connect on LinkedIn to a job, and like that's not necessarily somebody that you really know quite well. Typically, if you all connected on LinkedIn, it means that there was somehow of an angle, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe alumni, maybe it was like a professor, maybe it was, so I would utilize that angle and just remind that person, being like, hey, um, just wanted to reach out. I know that we're both alum of this university, which is why we connected in the first place. I did see that you are working at Google, and I'm currently applying for this specific role. I would love to know if you'd be open. And sometimes they're not going to be the direct recruiters, right? Or the managers, right? So maybe sometimes going at it with like, you know, I would love to get just on a short chat to hear your insider perspective about the company or how to optimize my application. I know you're busy, so sometimes if you don't really know them, it can be just about asking for an informal chat, but utilizing that angle that you have of that connection. I don't know if that makes sense, Jade, but I think that's a really good strategy. If it's in the case that it's not somebody that you really actually know very well. If it's somebody that you know very well, of course I would be like, hey, I'd love to hear your 2 cents about the role, the company, like, approach it as an informal ask. And then once you speak to them, then you can actually like start getting maybe some more advice and maybe say like, is there any way for you to, you know, like, do you know the recruiter for the role? Like, you can kind of ask the questions once you have that. So I hope that makes sense. Sorry, Sylvia, I'm like supplementing on some advice as well, because of course
No.
we do that a lot with our program too. So there's a great question from Ganan who's asking, thanks for the wonderful talk. I'm wondering if you got to create art yourself day to day at Google or mainly organizing events.
No, I didn't get to do that, but I would say, the thing that I love the most, I think, is also like a creative part of my job, that it's also researching. And, I get to create to understand how, the page works when like the page online about like, I don't know, a specific project work. And, I get to choose like which content can be like the hero content and can be put, before another or secondly. And yeah, I like, I don't get to create art, but yeah, for sure I get to, do something like more creative than other.
Yeah, of course, because it's, you're kind of working in the role. So Richard is actually asking a question that in some way is like related to that. Like, did you see yourself, and I know you're not, he says as an artist, but I know you're not an artist, you're not really an artist per se, you're like more an arts management person, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
did you see yourself like at least as an arts, person, right? Being in a leadership position, and what skills do you wish you learned before taking such a role? I think that's a great question.
Okay. No, like I didn't see myself working at Google. Like so when I was when I was interning at you know foundation I was talking about before, or Residency Unlimited even, I was always seeing myself like working, for like nonprofits, still like Google Arts and Culture is a nonprofit, but yeah, we know like it's part of like a bigger company. So I didn't see myself working there at all. But yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it because I can see, the good part of it, and I can see, the mission is itself is, about like opening the access and democratizing as well the access to art, I think.
Yeah,
So I think that's a cool thing to do.
of course, of course. And it's interesting because I think, um, getting to such a big company is also something that you have to build for. You're not going to get to a big company like that from the get-go. Sometimes I talk to my participants, they're like, oh, I want to intern for that massive company, and I'm like, okay, cool, but you don't have yet experience on your resume to be able to leverage that, right?
Yeah.
So it's also sometimes like starting also with those smaller firms, those non-for-profit organizations, and like you can then start looking into those companies, right, that are going to be bigger and
Yeah.
that are going to, of course, like more competitive. There's a great question from Anna, actually, because it's true. Do you help at all with changing the Google logo on the website? Because the logo changed with art.
Okay.
Are you involved at all with that or not really?
Yeah,
You
actually,
are?
you can suggest some topics, for example, like when we, for example, create like when we launch some projects. There were some projects that were featured like in the Google search tab. So yeah, you can do that. It's very hard to to get chosen, but because yeah, there are some projects that are not in line with being there, like overexposed. But yeah, uh, like for example, some are uh, about contemporary art, like they can be I don't know, some pieces of art can be, the copyright is
Right.
also like a thing. So um, yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know you were being able to be involved in that. And I guess I have one question, like, how is it to work at Google, like, the office and stuff like that? Because we see it I mean, I feel like we've seen in the movies or popular culture that like it's like those crazy campuses where everybody's like, I don't know, there's like nap pods and stuff like that, like, meditation rooms. Like, is it true? Like, how is how is the office?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is true, definitely. I can say that there are cooler offices than others, I think, around the world.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, some of them are more have more like perks than others. But yeah, it's very cool. Like all the designs are super fun, and yeah, you get to have like the cafeteria in every room you have. So it's like it's cool. Like yeah.
I
It's
love
nice. Like I remember like I went once in Copenhagen and they had like a dog area as well. So it's really crazy sometimes.
in the office they had like a bunch of dogs running around.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I love that. That is
yeah,
very
yeah,
cool. That is
yeah.
very cool. And and then just one last question because I want to be sorry, I'm not going to be able to get to all questions, you all, and thank you so much for being so engaged. Um, there's a question because I'm conscious of time and we have four more minutes together. You were saying that you're not creating arts yourself, but you were saying that you're doing things that are a little bit more creative. Like, would you be
Mm.
explaining like what does that mean?
Yeah,
What do you think so? Like, and what's creative?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like for example, when you need to create a page, like I would, like when you go to the Google Arts and Culture webpage, you see, there are some graphics. Some projects have graphics, some projects have illustrations, and you get to, talk to some artists and, decide with them what illustrations can be featured. And, you get to choose like colors or, the palette of that of that page. Also, I think another thing that involves creativity is also like the research I do beforehand. So, for example, like with the design project I was working with, I was talking about before, you I was able, to kind of involve, the institutions I wanted to involve, like, the relevant institutions you have in Italy about design. And, you get to understand also, what's cool to have in the page, or, what's important, what's something that people cannot miss about Italian design. So it's really, yeah, that's also creative in some
Of course,
ways, I think.
of course. You're curating how to showcase it. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
it's super fun. I love that, Sylvia. Before we wrap up, I will just talk briefly about, our next events, just so you all know. We have a career workshop series arriving May 6th on how to craft a standout resume, May 7th on how to build a winning portfolio with a creative director, May 8th on the recruitment process as well, with a senior recruiter. And if you all want to hear more about the program itself, there's an info session on May 21st, as well as a Q&A with our ABI alumni. So I have added the link, and I will add it once more here so that you all can see it in case you want to register. Sylvia, this was so cool. Thank you so much for doing this talk. And like, it's really nice for us to have people who are, just generous and not gatekeeping about what they're doing and how they got in. And I think, I wish there were more people who were doing what you're doing, and giving us the real story and the real advice. So really appreciate you for doing this. We're so proud, obviously, of you, for killing
Thank you.
it. And I'm very proud that we somehow little contributed to this, although you did it yourself. But, I do feel like, I'll take a little bit of the win as well in some ways
For
that
sure.
I
Yeah.
hope, I hope that we somehow, at least build a couple of experiences for you that you were able to resell.
Yeah, 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 that's for sure.
Yeah, and thanks again for taking the time, and thank you everybody for joining. That was so great. You all were so engaged. And honestly, if you are joining those talks, I just want to say that you're already doing a big part of it, because you're already proactive and doing maybe more than other people who are not taking the time to go on those types of events. So Sylvia, thank you. We'll let
Thank
you
you so much, Laura. And I
yeah.
mean, thank you everyone for all the questions, and yeah, good luck with everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll talk to everybody very soon. Feel free to check
Bye.
us out as well on LinkedIn if you need to follow us or anything like that. Okay. Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
day.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Ciao,
Bye,
ciao.
Laura. Bye.